friends, my name is Joey Balistreri. Welcome to my channel. Today I am working with the beads from this month's dollar bead box and dollar bead bag. I normally do an unboxing because I absolutely love this company. This was one of my first subscriptions that I got, but something went wrong with the mail. The customer service was great, but I received a shipping notification, but 2 weeks later I still didn't have the box. So they responded right away when I messaged a Dollar Bead Club, and they troubleshot the situation and found out there was a typo in my address. So they mailed out the beads right away, and I just got them. So I'm not going to do an unboxing because by now you all have yours if you get this. For those of you that don't get it, it is a curated, the bag is a separate subscription than the box, and there are strands of check glass, and they all go together. Like you can see that this month's was very golden and just beautiful, just really beautiful for this time of year. But I see these golden and vanilla colors like, you know, all year. I love gold. So for me, this is just a staple in my jewelry wardrobe. So I'm going to do a bracelet bonanza today. I have 3 bracelets out here. And I did love the quote. Before I start, I did want to read the quote. This is an unknown author, and it says, "November drapes the world in muted gold and amber." I absolutely love that, but I love poetry. So they don't know the author of this quote, but the people at the Dollar Bead Club felt like it was perfect for these autumn hues, and I agree. So if you're not familiar, I'm just going to back up a little bit and tell you that this is a club. So all of the strands are only $1 on the website. So you either have to be a member by getting the monthly subscription, and then you are free to shop the website, and you can go back and get any of the check glass strands for $1. It is such a great deal, whether you make jewelry with wire or whether you are a bead weaver. All the different millimeter sizes of the check glass and so many different shapes, plus they have check glass buttons. They have some metal findings. It's a really sweet little website. But if you are not into another subscription, if you don't want to get either the dollar bead bag or the dollar bead box, you can do like a price club with them where you pay an annual fee. For my American friends, you know that from like Sam's and Costco, and it's really reasonable. And then you aren't getting a monthly subscription, but you can shop the website and everything is $1. So it's just really great. It was one of the first, way before I was on YouTube, it was one of the first subscription boxes that I started to get. I just love it. So in my projects, I'm just going to show you quickly what I'm going to be doing in case any of you want to make along with me. The wire that I'm using is my favorite, the Soft Flex 20 gauge. It has an anti-tarnish coating, and I've already cut my little pieces of that. This bracelet is going to need 6 crimps, so I have my little Soft Flex Company gold-filled number 2 crimp tubes, and I'm going to be stringing on this bone color of the medium 49 strand bead stringing wire. This is my favorite wire, and it comes in so many beautiful colors. So if you do a design where some of the wire is exposed, it's just beautiful. You don't always need to cover it up because it just becomes an element in your design. And then let me set this aside. And then this bracelet is a sample that I did with a silicone slider bead and some silk cord. But I had to get creative with this because my silicone slider beads have a little bit of a large space in between the silicone, and this silk really didn't want to grab the bead. So I had to kind of run my cord back up and do some creative knotting so that my slider bead would actually hold the bracelet closed. And I have another bracelet out here to share with you because it's one that I purchased. But these little bracelets are so sweet. They make great gifts. They are simple stringing. The crimping on these is a flat crimp. They're so easy and simple to make. And I decided to do one because I was out shopping with my son, and I found this one, and it was on clearance, and it is pink tourmaline, which is my very all-time favorite gemstone, and gold. And look at the little micro pave bow charm that is strung right on here, and it has this silicone slider bead, and it's done on like a nylon cord. I I purchased it so that I could actually do my own version, and they've used like a match or a thread zap to melt the ends of the little knots, and it's just everything is really, really petite on this. But I purchased this because I love it, but I also thought we could make these. So I'm going to do a version of that commercially made bracelet with some Brazilian waxed cord. I'm just using something I picked up at my local craft store. And the main thing is, before you do all your stringing, to test and make sure that what you want to go through your beads and your silicone slider actually does go through. So I'll link these below if you are interested. This is an Amazon find, and there were 3 or 4 different sizes and the gold and silver of the silicone slider beads, and that's what I used here on this one for my little test run. And this was a silk, 100% silk cord that I had in my stash, and I think it'll be okay for me because I'm not hard on my jewelry, but I thought I needed to move up to something with a little bit more substance, so I'm moving into the Brazilian waxed cord for this design. But I'm going to start with the easiest of the 3 bracelets. I have a little snippet of my 20 gauge wire, and I'm going to be using these little these have that not Picasso, travertine, sorry, the travertine finish on these beads. It's a really beautiful check glass finish. And I have had this little bracelet in my stash. It is also a silicone slider bracelet, but these are super simple. Last year I did a video on making bracelets with these, but they are great gifts because they are super fast to make, super easy, even at a basic skill level, and they fit anybody because you can adjust this. You can put this on at any length that you want. So I'm going to take this beautiful little oval bumblebee bead from the box, and I pulled in a couple of little disc spacers from my stash, and I'm going to do a simple little component that's a focal and attach it to this bracelet. So let's cut these open. Just wanted to add a little something on either side of my little bee. And so what I'm going to do is get my 1.5 millimeter one-step looper. You can do your simple loops with your pliers. I'm just going to put the wire in past the back jaw, close it. It makes a nice blunt cut for me. So my wire is pretty, and then I'm going to smooth, warm, and straighten. So when I'm making my component, I am starting off with a nice piece of wire, and I'm using the tool as a plier. I pull this down so that that loop is centered on the wire, and then when I take it away, I have such a nice loop. And then I'm just going to create a little pattern here with one of these little check beads, a little disc spacer. I can link these below. These are so cool. Let me just reach behind me and show you what this is. This is just a little set. I have reordered this so many times. It's just a little set of disc spacers, and most of them have really large holes. This one that I'm using is the one with the smallest hole, but they go through Brazilian waxed cord or wire or the 49 strand, and they just come in so handy to add a little pop of, metal to any design, really. I keep them right on my little work cart, and I reach for them all the time. Just have to get this little bend out of the wire so it goes through my check glass bead. There we go. And I'm just going to pull that little bead down and repeat the same thing on this side. And I want my loops to be going in the same direction. If you're using the one-step looper, whoops, get on there. If you're using the one-step looper, it always makes the loop going upward. So since I want them to be in the same direction, I'm going to get a hold of my first loop. This time I'll use the guide hole in the tool and just gently close it here so that I can see that everything is where I want it to be and that I'm not putting too much pressure on my beads. And I don't pop this closed. I close it slowly so that I can watch what's happening here. And I'll always pull my stack down as I'm closing the tool. And that way I can see that I'm not stressing my beads, and I also centered this loop on this loop. And if they look misaligned, mine don't look misaligned, but if they did, while it's still in the tool, you can take your other plier and you just get this beautiful little component that way. It's just so great. And then I am just going to add this to this little bracelet and it's done. I mean, these are so easy to make. If you have gifts, these are just absolutely amazing. They came with these little jump rings already, and I think I am going to use those, but I want to open my own simple loops so that I can open and close my pliers on it and work harden it a little bit. So I'm just going to attach this right here and do the same thing on the other side. So like I say, great gift because this is a 5-minute project. Any skill level, even if you're just brand new to making jewelry, you should be able to do this, and it fits anybody. And you can, you know, literally do any beads that you want. Just want to make sure I'm not attaching it twisted. And make sure it's closed really well because you don't want to lose your focal section on your bracelet. And then what I do is, with a little force, open and close my pliers on those loops, and it just work hardens and makes the bracelet strong, because this gets a little bit of tugging, but look how stunning that is. Let's try it on. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And these are pretty easy to close too. I can just like scoot it up with my hand. Isn't that pretty? I think that I found this one on the Bead Box Bargains website. It's the sister website to Bargain Bead Box. But when I edit the video, I'll look for links in case you like the idea of this. But look how beautifully it stacks with this. And I love the dangle. And you know, like I say, it fits anyone. And if you like your bracelets looser, you can just pull your silicone bead out. So that first bracelet is done. And we're going to move to the next one, and I'll go ahead, since we're on the silicone slider bead, I'm going to go ahead and start on this one. So what I have in my little pot here is the smallest of the sizes of the silicone slider bead, and I have 2 little gold crimp beads. These are the ones that you just flatten, so it's a super easy way to crimp. And if you are not familiar with a big eye needle, I highly recommend a big eye needle. They are so useful in jewelry design. It's super small, smaller than you would think, but it is split down the middle, so it's very easy to thread things like into a slider bead, or if you need to get waxed cord through something that you're struggling with. And I can link these below. I love this little set. I found these, and it is a whole tube of from really long ones to really short ones, because occasionally, you know, you will break one of these. It's a needle, but they are just make a project like this delightful, where you don't struggle like getting your cords through your slider bead. So I have one of those out here, and I have a little length of that cord that I showed you, and I am going to cut this strand of beads open. So let me just show you where we're going with this. Here's my little sample. On this one, this silk cord just wouldn't go through anything, so I just took another bead. As I said, I needed to fill up the space, and I threaded my silk right back up. We won't have to do that on this one, but you need a little stop bead or a little drop, because otherwise your slider bead, you know, you'll just pull it right off the end. So on this one, I looped through the check glass bead and back up to here and tied a little knot, and that was my stopper bead. But we got these 2 little leaf charms in our box this month, and I just adore them, and they are absolutely perfect. Let me show you. I mean, on this one, the commercially made one, they just put a little bead at the end, but I think these little leaves will be so perfect for finishing off this bracelet. So I'm just going to create a little stringing pattern here of these, I think these are 5mm check glass faceted rounds in this beautiful golden color, and I'm going to mix in these little rondelles that are, whoops, can't hold on to anything this morning, and these other rondelles. I'm just going to do a little, like a fun little pattern with these beads to get my bracelet length. I'm not sure how many I will need. And you could block off one end, and I do have extra here. I'm not going to be knotting in between the beads, but you certainly could. And like I said, you just want to make sure that your cord is going to go through your slider. I'll use my big eye needle to get the other end through, and you also want to make sure that the beads you want to string will go through. And you can stiffen the ends if you're using Brazilian waxed cord, like with nail polish or super glue, but I just pinch and twist, and that's the point of it. You know, it's waxed cord. So I'm gonna see if I can get it through these check glass rounds. That's amazing. I love that. And I do think I want to pull out some kind of a seed bead for a little bit of gold in between. So let me pause. I'm going to get a little gold spacer in here and also just string this off camera so you won't be bored, because I'm just going to create a pattern with these beads and a little pop of gold, like make some blocks of beads by color and style. So it'll just be a second for you. I'll be right back. Okay, I did go back into this little stash of spacers to create this pattern, and I'll show you what I did. And I've also brought my beads down to the middle of the bracelet because I'm going to need a little length down here as a working cord. And so that's my little pattern. I did a little center focal section of the rondelles, and I just also brought in some check glass seed beads. These are 8/0s, and I think I might even use them in the next bracelet as well. And then I'll be able to stack all of these bracelets because the beads were curated, so they are just beautiful. And so I have this amount left over plus this little bit of my strand, and I do have some more of these little what are these, rondelles, little smooth rondelles. So when I start stringing this one, I may pull those back in. But what you want to do with one of these bracelets is just make sure that you have the length of your beads and pretty much where they would be touching if the silicone slider is all the way up. So I got my length just perfect. It's not too heavy, but it is a little bit bigger than the smaller one that I made. And then I am going to just get one of these little crimp beads onto my waxed cord. I did not need my big eye needle for this part. I'm going to do one on each end. This end is a little bit mangled. Let's see if I can do it. Doesn't seem like those tiny little crimp beads would go on, but they do. And then I'm just going to make sure that my pattern of beads is pushed down, and I am going to flat crimp those two beads. So let me move some of this out of the way. Don't want to make a mistake because then I would probably have to restring once you flat crimp. It's a little bit hard to get these off. You can crack them off, but it's not easy. So I'm just going, the first side, you know, is you still have some adjustability because the other side is not done. And I'm just going to flat crimp just like that. Now this side, I just want to make sure I don't have any gaps. I don't want my beads too tight. They're spaced out pretty nicely, and same thing, just flat crimp. So my bracelet part is done, and now I'm going to get my silicone bead on. So the first end goes in really easily. This one might go in easily as well. Let's see. So they both have to go in the same direction in the slider bead. Nope, the second end is going to give me trouble, so that's where a big eye needle is absolutely wonderful. And so sometimes I'll even do the little trick of like flattening out the end of my thread, like unraveling it a little bit, because if you do it this way, you're actually pulling two thicknesses of the cord through your slider bead. And then I'm just going to like find the center of the silicone. It's clear, so you don't want to pierce your other cord with your needle or put an extra hole in the silicone. So I can see that I that I cleared it. And now just get my pliers in here and just gently pull it through. Big eye needle is wonderful. And now I can pull my cords together and finish off the end. So as I said, my little leaves are going to be the stopper, and just want to pull this out enough. Just want to pull this out enough so that I can see that I have the space for getting it on my hand. And so that's pretty good. I'm gonna, if I come somewhere around in there with my leaf stopper, then I'll have some nice little dangles, but not too much. And so I purposefully cut extra because I know that I need to tie a little knot here. So let's see, come right about there, maybe even a little further up. And so I'm just looping my cord through that leaf. And I'm just going to get a knot in here. Just bring my leaf back through the loop and just get a knot right down above that leaf. A really pretty knot. Just work it down and tighten it. Perfect. Okay, and now I can cut this away, and I will probably put a little dot of beader's glue on this. I am a gluer. The Brazilian wax cord knots beautifully, and it really does kind of grab onto itself. But you know, it's a bracelet, and this part will get tugged on a lot, so I'll probably put a little bit of like GS Hypo Cement. It's a glue that dries rubbery, not crunchy hard, and it's perfect for this kind of thing. So I'm just going to line this up so that my knot is approximately on the same side. And just gently work it down. Perfect. Okay, and trim, make sure I am trimming the right cord. Definitely don't want to have to redo that. And this second little sweet little bracelet is done. Whoops, I'm caught on my ring. Look at that. It even stacks with my it even stacks well with my other bracelets. Oh, I love this. Whoops, I didn't have it pulled all the way. These are so fun to make, and they fit anybody. And you know, they're adjustable, so you don't have to worry about size. You have a little space to add little charms. You can stack these. These are just, they make wonderful gifts. So, and look, I have to, let me move my little scissor sachet out of the way and show you. Look how beautifully, since the beads in this box were curated, that is a beautiful, beautiful bracelet set, and we're about to make another one. So I'm going to put my big eye needle away, and I always keep this little tube on my work cart behind my work table. They come in so handy so that you don't struggle with things like that. And so this bracelet is going to be, I'm going to need some of these. I'm going to dump some of those out. And this bracelet is going to be a multi-strand. I'm going to make some jump rings for each of the little rings in this clasp. This came from my bead shopping trip with my friend Gail this past summer. I just love this. I just think it's so pretty. I was going to do something like a woven pattern, but I really love this clasp. But I have another set of clasps. Since I'm going to make the jump rings as well, and I am going to create my strands and definitely attach my crimped strands with jump rings. I like the movement of it, but I also like the possibility of changing to a different clasp if I am, you know, not thrilled with the way one is clasping. So this is again from the Beadbox Bargains website, And I have done a bracelet with these before. The only trick is your T-bar going through the hole once you have 3 strands. So sometimes I have found that I have to do extra jump rings here so that this T-bar will turn sideways and go through. So that is another possibility for my clasp there. And I'm going to start out by making some jump rings. So, and I'm going to make some pretty small ones, so I'm just going to warm my wire a little bit. And if you have never done this before, it's really easy. And since I'm using my Soft Flex wire that has the anti-tarnish coating, I don't have to put my Permalac, I don't have to brush it on jump rings, just like these fashion jewelry findings. I'll do my silicone slider beads. I always brush it on these little Tibetan spacers so that they don't tarnish. Use my 6-step bail making plier. I'm going to do the second to the smallest, and just I need a fresh cut on the end of my wire. It's at a point. So I always want to start with a nice blunt cut, and I'm going to put this in between the pliers so that I'm wrapping around the mandrel that I want. And I'm just going to make a turn and just keep going, just laying that wire next to the previous turn, pushing against my finger. And I'm just going to coil the length of this wire, and I'll have a lot of jump rings made and ready to go after my stringing. Okay, and now I'm going to come back to my first coil right there, and with the flush side of my cutters, I'm going to snip right at that spot, and I'm just going to cut one ring at a time all the way up that coil. Last one. And I have what I need plus some extras, because sometimes on a bracelet like this that's multi-strand, you need to add in extra jump rings. Okay, I'm going to cut these strands open. This is one of my favorite check glass beads of all time. I love this pressed glass bicone. This one looks like it has the Picasso wash and an AB finish, so it's got a couple of finishes on top of the bead, but I love getting the geometry and the cool lines of a bicone in pressed glass because it's so smooth and soft. And when you string it, like I did them in this bracelet, these are the gold pressed glass bicone beads, and they just feel soft against your skin. So it's one of my favorite beads, and this is also another favorite check glass bead. I love the 6mm faceted rounds. And I just love the finishes. They're like artwork. It's like little tiny pieces of artwork with the check glass. And I'm gonna love adding in this little pop of like crystal. These sparkle a little bit. They don't have the travertine or the Picasso wash on them, and I think they're going to be a nice accent. And I might even pull in some of the things I had left over from my other bracelets. Don't want my beads to get away from me. Take about half of these off. And so I have cut 3 equal lengths of my Soft Flex bone colored 49 strand, and I since I'm creating 3 patterns and I need them to end up all being the same length, pardon me while I reach behind me, I am going to string without crimping at first. I'm going to go ahead and clamp off one end of each strand and create my 3 bead patterns with what I have out here. So again, this would be really boring to sit and watch me play with all of these beads. I'm going to do most of my stringing off camera, but I'll usually try to start with like what I want in the middle, and I think I'm going to want this 6mm round for my middle strand. So I'm just going to create 3 patterns of equal length using all of these elements, and I'll do this off camera and then I'll come back and show you what I came up with. This is the most fun for me, is bead patterns, like stringing like this. And there's a little bit I enjoy, like putting them on and saying, oh no, or oh, I want to add something, the on and off, until I just get that sweet spot and the pattern is perfect for me. So I like to pause the camera and do that. So just be a second for you, and I'll be back. Okay, my stringing is done, and I need 6 of these number 2 crimp tubes, and I think I am going to start out with this clasp. So this is my first pattern, really simple, the 6mm check glass round dotted with those seed beads, and that's going to be one of the outer strands, and then this is going to be my center strand. I used up the rondelles that was left over from my other bracelet and just created a little pattern dotted with the gold. And I love making bead stations in my patterns. I just think it's so pleasing to the eye that you just have like the stringing and then a bead station, the stringing and then a bead station. I just love it. And then the other outer strand is just my simple bicone, my pressed glass bicone, and again dotted with those little tiny rondelles and seed beads, and they're all exactly the same length. And so this is going to be really repetitive on the first end of each one of these strands. It's super easy. Just get a number 2 crimp tube on, make a loop. I am going to use my one-step looper here. I'm sorry, my one-step looper, my magical crimping plier. I reach for that one-step looper all the time, so it came to mind. But I'm just going to make a loop and get this loop to be really small. I want it to be really tiny and unobtrusive. And I'm going to magical crimp all of these strands. And if you are not familiar with the magical crimping plier, it looks like this. It has a single divot, and you just like center your crimp tube in there and close the tool, and it turns the tube into a square, pinching all 4 corners. And then I'm going to go in the opposite direction and close it again and just go around and around and around a few times, and just opening and closing, but keeping the position of the tube in that divot. And when you take your plier away, it has turned that tube into a perfect little gold bead. And if it's possible, I like to run my wire back down through a couple beads, but on these, I think on most of these check glass beads, that's not going to be possible. So I have to come really close to my crimp bead and just snip. And I'm going to repeat the same thing on this end and on the other 4 ends. And you know, you just want to make sure when you're doing this that you don't have this push down so tight that it's rigid. So I'm going to feed on this other tube, make that loop, and before I crimp, I'm going to take my time and make sure that my bracelet is not rigid, that my spacing is correct, and try to match my loops. Every time I do one of these videos, I get all kinds of comments of all the different creative ways that you all make sure that all your loops match. I've heard everything from put your round nose plier in there, put a toothpick in there. I've heard everything, but I make my jewelry with my heart. I don't measure a lot. I just tend to like eyeball it, and you know, they're pretty close to the same. And I just want to make sure that this curves nicely, because if I need to back this loop out at all, I don't want to have any weird gaps, but I do want it to be really fluid. That seems pretty good to me. Maybe just a tiny little adjustment. Okay, and same thing. I'm going to put my magical crimping plier in, close, opposite direction, and just rotate it around a few times. You can put a crimp cover over your magical magically crimped beads. And I do sometimes if I feel like this is too small, but look at that. It looks like another seed bead. And I love this plier because it feels like a non-jewelry maker would look at this bracelet and that looks like a bead. It doesn't look like it's performing a function. So it's really hard for a non-jewelry maker to tell, you know, how a piece is held together with that tool. I love it. It has very professional, very polished finish. I'm just trying to get my cutter in. I want to get that a little bit closer. And I'm going to repeat the same thing on all the other 4 strands. And I'll do that and be right back. I'm so excited about connecting this that I started connecting and forgot to turn the camera on. But all I did is put my little jump rings through the loops that I made and crimped. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I separated the clasp. And I really think this clasp that I purchased was made for a bead weaving pattern. So that's why I did the jump ring situation. And my strands are petite enough that they lay nicely in between the holes. So what I mean by that is that I'm not using such a large size bead that there's not space for each strand to lay next to each other. So it does fit, and I'll see, you know, that's one of the reasons I like to attach my clasps with jump rings, because oftentimes I will change my mind about a clasp, or if something in wearing it is just too difficult to take on and off. I like being able to just open a jump ring and change out the clasp without having to redo my stringings. Okay, look how beautiful this is. It's a little bit much with my bracelet that I already have on, but let me see if this is going to be easy or difficult to clasp. It is so beautiful, but it is a little bit challenging to clasp. Let me take off my wrap bracelet so we can see it. These are so easy with the magnetic clasp. It is so beautiful. I love the way it turned out, and I love the look of that clasp with all those check glass beads and these golden colors. And I got my length just right. I don't know if I'll change my mind. I may wear this a little bit. This was not something I was going to give away. I was going to keep this one for myself. But like I said, this clasp is really meant, I believe, to tie your thread from a seed bead project right onto those loops. And I decided to try it for a multi-strand bracelet that was strung. So this was a super fun project, really wonderful bracelet bonanza, super easy for gifts if you have some gifts to make and sizes might be an issue. If you do craft fairs, these types of adjustable bracelets are really wonderful for that because you know, they're easy. They're easy to fit, easy to give, and these are really fast to make. So I will put links in the description box to the Dollar Bead Club. I will also put links to anything else that I've used in my work today that I think you might be interested in. I won't forget about the silicone sliders and anything else that I think you might be interested in. And I thank you so much for watching. I hope everybody is safe and well and having fun on your beading mats. Ciao, creative friends.